Bluegrass Jam Along is proud to be sponsored by Collins Guitars and Mandolins, each and every one built from the sound up in Austin, Texas. Hi, this is Matt, and you're listening to Bluegrass Jam Along, the podcast for anyone and everyone who loves bluegrass. Hey everybody, welcome back to Bluegrass Jam Along. My guest on the podcast this week is Jason Carter. Jason's an extraordinary fiddle player, but also he's been part of one of the best loved bluegrass bands for over 3 decades. And he just a couple of months ago left the McCoury Band. And I wanted to chat to him about that because it's a really interesting time talking to people when they're in a transition period. But that 30 years, just from his point of view, has been an extraordinary journey. And for bluegrass in general has been an extraordinary journey. It sort of covers the rise and fall of the CD era. It covers the Oh Brother kind of phenomenon. It covers so many different things. And so I wanted to talk to him about his personal journey, but also kind of the wider journey that Dale and bluegrass have been on in that time as well. And we get into all of that. It's a fascinating conversation. Amazing story about how he got the job with Dell in the first place. That's really fascinating. But also just talking about getting to know the music, his journey with learning instruments, some of the landmarks along the way, including really cool stuff like recording The Mountain with Steve Earle, which is one of my favourite bluegrass albums, and so much more stuff. And also we chat about what he's up to next with his solo career and also the record he's got out with Michael Cleveland, and just so much stuff. This was a really, really fun conversation, really interesting, and really enjoyed this one. I hope you do too. Before we start, just a reminder that if you want to support Bluegrass Jam Along, there's a couple of things you can do. One is you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, and all that money goes directly towards helping me keep this podcast going, cover the costs, all that kind of stuff, and is really useful. But also, if you don't want to do that, the other thing you can do is recommend Bluegrass Jam Along to a friend. If you've got friends who love bluegrass and would enjoy this podcast, please do tell them. Just send them a link to an episode, mention it to them, whatever. Word of mouth is a really useful tool for stuff like this. So I would recommend you do that, and I would very much appreciate it if you do. And that's it. Let's have a listen to Jason Carter talking about an extraordinary 33 years with the McCoury Band. My guest on Bluegrass Jam Along this week is Jason Carter, multiple award-winning fiddle player who you all know and love from his long stint with the McCoury Band and the Traveling McCourys. And that has recently come to an end, which we're going to chat about, but we're also going to chat about what comes next and all the stuff he's been doing alongside that as well. Jason, it is great to have you here. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me. Yeah.
What a run with Dell and the band. 33 years.
Yeah, man. It's... Yeah, it feels, I have to admit, man, it feels a little weird to hear that run is over. You know, I never thought I would leave the band. Not in my wildest dreams did I ever think I would leave the band. And it's happened, and I think it's okay. You know, everything feels good. It's just a little weird to hear, you know. It's like I've done a couple of these interviews, and when I hear formally of the McCoury Band, it's a little odd for me, you know, as you can imagine.
Well, that's, you know, such a big chunk of your life. You know, you're in that band for more than half your life. And that's...
I started when I was 19. I got the job when I was 19, right out of high school. And, man, to be honest with you, that's... That gig is probably why I started playing the fiddle. You know, I mean, there's a chance that I would have picked up the fiddle anyway, you know, but I played music when I was a kid, and I played guitar and mandolin. And as a kid, people would ask me what I was going to do. You know, people ask you what you're going to do for, you know, when you get out of school, what are you going to do for a living? That's just what people ask, and I would always say, I'm going to play with the McCoury Band. When I heard Dale, and I was about 15 years old when I heard Dale, the first thing I heard was that there was a show called Fire on the Mountain. David Holt was the host of that show, and I heard the Del McCoury Band on there. And up until then, well, I listened to a lot of bluegrass, of course, but Tony Rice was always my hero, and I played guitar and tried to play like him. I couldn't do it. I couldn't come close by no means, but that's what I tried to do as a kid. And then I heard Del, and I swear it was his vocal and his guitar playing is what drew me to that. The guitar, I've always preached it. It was the sound of that band. It all revolves around that guitar. It's the driving force of that band. But anyway, when I heard that kind of changed me. It's like I started playing along with this, playing my guitar along with the video that I saw, and got a couple records, and I would play along, and people would ask me what I was going to do, and I'd say I'm going to play with the Del McCoury Band. And my dad told me, he said, "Son, I'm pretty sure that his sons play mandolin and banjo in the band. I think they had just started, and he said, if you want a job in that band, he said, you're going to have to play bass or fiddle." And we had a fiddle at home. So I started playing the fiddle, and my dad started me off on a couple things, but man, I dug deep. I just went head first into Del McCoury records, and I played the mandolin so I could figure the left hand stuff out because it notes the same as the fiddle. So I had that advantage. But that's how I learned to play. That's how I learned to play fiddle was listening to his records. And then I got with the band, and that's when I really learned how to. Well, I learned to play as well as I do now. I learned a lot from Del. Del used to drive the bus, and I would ride shotgun with him. I would ride up there through the night, and I'd play fiddle, and I would ask him, how should I play this tune, and because I had tried to learn it like what was on the record, and he would tell me, you don't have to play like that. You can play whatever you want. And I didn't know I didn't know I couldn't play anything else. If if you tried to force me to do it, I couldn't do it. But he would sing to me. He'd say, now you could play it like this. And he'd sing a melody to me, and I'd try to play it back to him. We'd work on it like that. And that's kind of how I learned to play, and learning stuff from Ronnie and Rob and Mike Bubb and Mike Brantley and Alan Bartram.
And so, you kind of, as a young player, decide you want to play with Del's band. Obviously, the guitar spot's not free. So
right.
You pick up the fiddle, and then, so how do you get from that to being in the band?
Man, I think the stars were just lined up, man. That's all I can say, because I lived in Eastern Kentucky, and after I graduated high school, I thought, then it hit, it's like, how am I going to be in this band? I live here. They live in Pennsylvania. I'll never see these guys. So anyway, I went to vocational school to be a draftsman. And I still have the old briefcase that I took to school, and inside the briefcase, it's got where I noodled out like logos that I would draw in my drafting class, trying to make logos for the Del McCoury Band. That's what a fan I was, But anyway, I wound up getting a job with a band from Eastern Kentucky, where I was from, called the Goins Brothers, and they played mostly east of the Mississippi River, and all up in the northeast and southeast. And that was the most, around, I would say. They might have went to Oklahoma and some of those festivals, California, maybe a few times, but not that much. Anyway, I got a job with those guys, and we wound up being in Nashville in February of 92. This would have been my birthday. I was born February 1st, same day as Del McCoury. We got the same birthday. But that festival run over my Spigma is what they called it. But anyway, that festival was going on. Melvin Goins, or the Goins brothers, played there. And Del McCoury Band was there, and we were getting ready to go on with Melvin and Ray, and Del's fiddle player came up to me and he said, "Hey, I know you want this job," because I'd seen those guys and I'd talked to him. He knew that I was, he knew that I wanted to play with those guys, and what a fan I was. And he'd come to me and he said, "Hey, I know you want this job." And he said, "The McCourys are moving to Nashville." And he said, "I'm not making the move." He lived up in Maryland. He said, "I'm not going to make the move, so the job's going to come open. You should go talk to Del if you want this." And I was like, "Man, yeah." So I made a beeline and I found Del and I was like, "Hey, Tad just told me that he's leaving the band." And he's like, "Yeah." And I was like, I want to play fiddle for you. I want to be in your band. And I gave him my phone number, and he had never heard me play, And man, we went home and I didn't really think much of it, because I didn't really get to talk to him very much anymore. Got to watch him jam at the festival. Del was actually jamming there in the hallway, and it was awesome. But when I got home about 2 weeks later, the phone rang, and I answered the phone, and my mom and dad said they knew who it was immediately, because I was saying, "Yes, sir." Yeah, I addressed him as sir with every breath, And but he told me, he said, "If you were the first person to ask for the job, so you're the first person that gets to try out." And we're playing Nashville, West Memphis, Arkansas, and Garland, Texas. And if you want to come on down, and we'll play these shows. And I did. And when we got back from that last show, they hired me, and I was there for 33 years.
And like it's easy to think, like now with Del being where he is, and kind of that he's always been like this huge thing, and the bluegrass world must have been so different back then.
Absolutely. We at that time, there's a lot happened, man, through those years. But at that time, we were just playing bluegrass festivals in small venues that would be like only bluegrass, not the rock clubs, not anything like that, no college campuses or anything like that. That all came later, maybe in 99, 2000, we started doing some of that stuff. But just the normal, I mean, they played, Del McCoury Band would play the Fox Hunters Lodge in Canonsburg, Kentucky, I think, where it's close to where I grew up. And I saw him there, I mean, and this place was literally a Fox Hunters Lodge. I mean, there was, maybe a wood burning stove in there, and, they had food, but it was like pinto beans and cornbread and hot dogs and chips, and that's all. That was the kind of gigs we played, and bluegrass festivals, smaller bluegrass festivals. So that's what we played at the time. But I think a big part of the reason for Del moving to Nashville was, his sons were young, and he wanted to get them here where the music was, and they were young, and they were the best players, even back then. They were at the top of their game, even back then. And so he wanted to get them in Nashville where they could, they could have a better chance to succeed playing music. And also at that time there was TV, it was the Nashville Network or CMT, and they had all these live or shows where they had live music. And so by being in Nashville, if somebody canceled, they would call around, and we actually got on on some of those shows on short notice because of a cancellation or something, and then we were on national TV, and that was huge for Del and for the band, I'm getting long-winded.
No, it's all good, because it's such an arc of like that 33 years. Like you see Dell's career grow, but you also see kind of the CD age come and go, streaming come in. You see Oh Brother, you see kind of like, the whole, this huge swathe of changes that happened in various waves over that time. We'll be right back with you just after this. The long-awaited Hill Country series from Collings Guitars represents a new voice in their acoustic lineup. Rooted deep in the bluegrass world, these new Dreadnought NOM models feature a strong fundamental tone with a dry, warm and woody character that's sure to catch the attention of players who hold the vintage instruments of the 30s in their highest regard. Watch world-class pickers Jake Workman, Kenny Smith and Bob Minner perform with new Hill Country instruments on the Collings Guitars YouTube channel, and learn more at collingsguitars.com.
Man, there was a couple things I think was, that had played a big part in the success of this band. And one thing was Dell got management, and he got with some bigger booking agencies as well at the time, led through his management. We got on... I might have the timeline on this mixed up a little bit, but maybe not. But he got on Ricky Skaggs's record label. We did a few records for them. Of course, the records that were produced by Jerry Douglas, and we might have done. Jerry may have produced something on the Skaggs label for Dell too. I don't remember offhand, but those records did extremely good for Dell. Cold Hard Facts and Deeper Shade of Blue, and Dell and the Boys. I don't know I can't remember which ones. He might not have produced that one. I get them confused. I would have to go back and look what songs are on which ones. But all that time it was starting to take off, But he got management, and that helped. He wound up getting with the same management that Ricky had, and it was Rainmaker Management. The guy's name is Stan Strickland. He still manages Dell today, and he did a fantastic job with Dell. But a couple key things that happened, I think, for the success of that band was we did a record with Steve Earle, and that was a pretty huge thing. I remember seeing that was one thing, and we also went up and played a festival in Oswego, New York, with Fish, and there was probably 80,000 people or so at that festival. So between those two things, every show that we would do from the next one after we played like each one of these, our crowds were growing, and there was people that would be at every show. We started doing rock clubs, and we would still go out to the record table after the show and sell merchandise and sign autographs and all that stuff. And every show that we did, there was people that said, "Hey man, we saw you with Steve Earle. We saw you with Fish," and they people, they would, I remember people come and say, "We drove 8 hours to get here to see you guys." And then it started, we would play places and we might sell it out. And then the next time we might sell out for 2 nights. And it was all around this time. And we also did the big festival Bonnaroo. And this was all around the same time. But when we did Bonnaroo, and I think getting us on Bonnaroo, it might have been the first one. But that was Ronnie's, I think that was Ronnie's idea. And he got the management rolling on that to get us on Bonnaroo. And we did that, and we played inside of a tent, and we were a late addition to the festival. And we weren't even advertised. We weren't on the bill, but it was just like word of mouth throughout the festival that we were going to be there. And this tent was huge. I say tent, but it was huge, man. There was thousands of people inside the tent. And I forget, we come from someplace, and it was a tough trip to get there. And then we sat in traffic because of the traffic getting into this festival was crazy. But anyway, we finally got in there and got parked. And I remember I walked in the tent and I looked, and there was just people inside, packed outside, flowing outside of this thing. I thought, man, this is going to be something. And we were playing on one microphone at the time.
Wow.
Everybody gathered around one microphone, and it was awesome, man. When Dell finally walked inside of that tent, that place exploded, man. I'd never witnessed anything like this. I'd never seen anything like this. The only thing I remember thinking, this is what must have been like for the Beatles. Of course, it wasn't that big, but the crowd was so loud, they never let up. From the minute he walked, we wasn't even on stage, and they were going nuts, man. And I remember we got on stage and we kicked off, and we're all gathered around this microphone, and we're standing like literally beside each other, and you could barely hear each other. Yeah, I mean, you could barely hear each other. I had my fiddle's under my ear, and I can't hear it because the crowd's screaming. It was amazing. It was crazy, man. It was a heck of a time.
Well, it's a really interesting build, because you've got all of that, and that Steve Earle album, like, that's how the Del McCoury Band came onto my radar. I'm a huge Steve Earle fan.
Yeah,
and it's such a good record,
man.
Like, every song on that record.
I agree with you, man. I agree. Steve, I just saw that he's going to be the newest member of the Grand Ole Opry.
Yeah,
I just saw that. It's so cool, man. But Steve, first time I remember seeing him, we played the Ryman. The Del McCoury Band played the Ryman, and this was late 90s, I guess. And Steve said, we were at the record table. As far as I can remember, he came up, or we were on our way there. But anyway, Steve was there, and he comes up to us, and we were all together, so I'm sure we were going to the record table. But anyway, he told us he wanted to do a record with us. And next thing I know, we saw him again. Steve started hanging out like at the Station Inn, the Bluegrass Club in Nashville. And I guess Del agreed that we would do this record with him. And so Steve started showing up at the Station Inn, and that's where we all hung out, you know. But he was there watching everything and listening to all this bluegrass. And man, he was studying it, you know. He was studying that music. And he told me, this is how green I was. I'd never been around a real songwriter like this. I don't know. Probably none of us had been around anybody of the caliber of Steve Earle when it comes to songwriting. I mean, the guy was just amazing. But I'll never forget that he said, all right, we're going to get together next week or something. He said, I've almost got the first half of this album wrote. We'll rehearse these songs. And I was like, man, he doesn't even have the songs for this record. We're going to call it a rehearsal. What is this about, you know? And we get there, and he had half of the record wrote. And we run over these tunes, and they were great. And I was like, man, that's way cool, you know? And then he says, I'll meet you guys. We'll maybe be back here in another week, and I'll write the rest of the record, and we'll rehearse it, and then we'll record. And I thought, boy, I bet this next batch will be some doozies. You know, didn't have much faith, and I could not believe it, man. When he come in and he played these songs, I mean, they were, to this day, they're some of the greatest songs I've ever heard, and perfect for. I mean, he wrote the perfect bluegrass songs. I mean, they were incredible. So I'd never been around anything like that, and it was pretty eye opening, you know.
Oh, it's fascinating, isn't it? Because, like, for me, Del sits in that, like, in the bluegrass world. There are some people who are just genius collectors of songs. To say, like, Del is one of those. Doc Watson was great at it. Alison Krauss is great at it. Tony Rice was great at it. And it's that thing
Yeah.
of just knowing how to bring stuff in from outside. So to hear like that album of all Steve Earle songs with that sound and his voice and Dell's voice and all of that together, and some great, like one of my favorite fiddle breaks of all time is Your Break on Graveyard Shift.
Oh man,
it's just got so much groove.
Oh man. Hey, you know, when we recorded that, I'm pretty sure we recorded that pretty live, you know, and I think we were lined up like on stage. We were like lined up across. I'm sure that we recorded part of that record that way. And it was, a lot of it was live, you know. Of course, we could go back and fix stuff, you know, so that if we messed up, we were able to, there wasn't much separation between us, but somehow we were able to overdub and change stuff, you know, if we needed to. So,
and you also,
I definitely need to.
And you also toured together for that record, didn't you? And that must have put you in front of another audience as well.
We did, and we went to Europe too with that record and toured. And yeah, man, that was really, you know, we did that when we did that record and toured with Steve. Like I say, man, after we did that, people would come up and they were like, "We saw you with Steve Earle." You know, that's how we found out about you guys, you know, and they hung in there with us, man. It's like, well, I mean, they're still coming to the McCoury Band shows, those fans, you know, them and the people that were at the Fish concerts and Bonnaroo and those, you know, I always thought that the bluegrass fans, they're very devoted fans and they'll hang in there. They'll stay with you. You know, if they like you, they're your fan till they die. And that's the same way with these people, you know, they're just music fans, you know.
And it's a really interesting,
pretty amazing.
Yeah. And it's a really interesting 2 or 3 years because you got like Steve Earle doing his bluegrass record. Dolly Parton does The Grass is Blue, which shines a light on all of it. And then Oh Brother sort of blows the bluegrass world up.
Yeah.
And you know, suddenly everybody's looking for bluegrass records to buy.
You know, I heard them talking about that Dell actually got a call to sing that part of the Man of Constant Sorrow. That I think they auditioned or had other people sing that, but Dan Tominski is the guy that got it.
Wow.
But I heard that they had asked Dell about doing that, and he was sick and didn't go in to sing.
Wow.
So he wasn't on the record, but they did a tour and they had us on the Down from the Mountain tour. So we got to go do a bunch of those shows. And man, that was a blast too. That was playing huge places, you know, and thousands of people at these shows. And it was really cool.
And somewhere in around there, maybe just before all that, you put out your first solo record, didn't you?
Oh, 1996. Yeah. I had just moved to Nashville. Well, it came out in 96, I think. So it would have been like 94, 95. I probably would have recorded it. I just moved to Nashville. Yeah. Yeah.
And how did that one come about? Was that sort of something something you planned to do, or just an opportunity that came up? Or
man, it just came up. Ken Irwin, one of the heads of Rounder Records. Well, I met him through Dell, you know, but he offered to let me do a record for Rounder Records, and of course I was blown away. I was just, you know, flattered that you know, I was like, this is the label that all my heroes are on. You know, Tony Rice records for Rounder Records, and they're going to do a record on me. I couldn't believe it, you know. And so we did. I got to do a fiddle record. Yeah.
And it sort of, there was a bit of a gap between that and your next solo record, like 25 years, I think.
To say the least. Yeah, man, it's you know, I always wanted to do something, and I always wanted to do another record. And um, the longer that I waited, the more I wanted to put it out myself. And of course, it's not cheap to do your own, to record a record and pay for everything for yourself. But I can remember I would save money, and every time I would get where I thought I was able to start recording a record, something would come up. I mean, it would be some huge bill, like I would need to have a roof on my house, or put a new roof on the house, or something it just seemed like that, But so I never did do one, and I've got like notebooks from back in the 90s where I was writing down songs and trying to come up with concepts about what to do. But I just never followed through. That's basically it, man. I just didn't do it. And I tell you, a big part of me doing my solo record, I think part of the reason I did that's because of my wife. She put out a record. She's put out 2 now, solo records. But when we were dating, she put out a fiddle record on her own. And and I watched her do that. And I started talking to her about, how do you do this? What all do I need to do? And she was a big help in that, And then she and I were playing a lot of, during the pandemic, we were dating. So we hung out all the time, So we were together all the time, and we were playing a lot of music together. And she was like, you ought to do a record. And so I was like, yeah, why not? Why don't I do a record? If I don't start it, I'm never going to do it, And so I did. I started booking sessions, and because of her help, and her pushing me to do that, and I finally did another one.
It's a great record as well, and I guess both of you have been on a similar journey in terms of taking that step to kind of sing lead vocal on stuff, because you've both sung before, but it's a different space in the spotlight on a record, isn't it?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I've always sang. It's funny for me. I've always sang. Before I was with Dell, I had a band with my dad, and I played guitar and sang lead in the band. But I got a job with the Goins brothers playing fiddle. I never got a professional job playing guitar and singing. And then when we started the traveling McCourys, I started singing more. That wasn't just like a novelty song or something on stage for a laugh or something. It was a little more serious, and then when I did my record, it's like I wanted to sing it all. And it's funny, Bronwyn, she did her record, and it was an instrumental record. I'll tell you about her. She's so inspiring, man. When she finished. She had some vocal songs on her first record, but it was like Tim O'Brien sang, James Key.
There's a Chris Eldridge track on it as well, isn't there?
Yeah. So she got done with that, and she said, the next record that I do, I want to sing. And so we would be jamming here at the house, and she would be like, can I sing one? And I was like, yeah, all right, let's do it, And she would start singing. And she started working up songs, and we started looking for songs for her to sing at that time, and then working on them here at the house, and next thing you know, boy, she's got a stellar record out, and she's singing all the songs on it. And just to give you a little heads up about what else is going on. And for me as well, and how she's inspired me on this end of things too. But when she finished that record, she said, my next record, I want to write the songs for it. And several months ago, she started writing songs, making writing appointments with different people around town, and starting writing songs. And man, she brought them home, and she's started singing them around here, and they were awesome. They're so good. And she's since went in and started recording a new record. And I heard a couple of the tracks. She's only got a couple done as of right now. But they're incredible, and they're songs that she wrote, and it's really good. Since then, I followed the leader. So I did the same thing, and I started making some writing appointments with people around town. And I tried to write years ago, and I didn't think I was very good at it. And I just thought, well, if I do this, and if I get one song that I could sing for the rest of my life, and it's my song, it's good, this is a worthy cause. So I went and did it. And man, I've got several songs that I'm wanting to record right now. So I'm thrilled about this, So, it's funny. It's like I had tomorrow. It's funny how things work, but I have tomorrow I had off, and I got a call last night for a session for tomorrow morning. So I took that, and last night I started working on a song, and got real excited about writing this song, and I needed some help with it. So I texted it to a buddy, and I was like, do you have any time today or tomorrow or the next day? And so tomorrow we're going to go try to finish this song. And then I got a rehearsal also scheduled for a show coming up. So I got a full day tomorrow, man. It's just, it's crazy. But anyway.
I was going to ask about fitting all this in, because, there aren't really that many full-time regular gigs in bluegrass, but Bronwyn has one of them, and you have two of them, because you're in two of the biggest bands up to that point, with Dell and then the Traveling McCourys, so it must have been hard to find time to fit other stuff in as well. Was that part of the decision to move on in the end?
Yeah, it was. The biggest part of the decision for me to do this is because I just want to do my own stuff, I want to play my own music. And I did my record. I had pretty good success with the first record, and the second one, the Lowdown Hoedown, and I really enjoyed doing that. I started doing my own shows, and I couldn't really get my schedule far enough in advance to book shows on my own to really make them successful. And I couldn't book festivals, because we were doing that with Dell, and I couldn't ask Dell or the Traveling McCourys to, can you take this week off, or this Saturday off where we make our money, and I'm going to go do my own. And I couldn't do that, So, and then we did this record with Mike. I did the record with Michael Cleveland, and I'm singing the majority of everything, all the songs on that's not instrumental, except for one. And Dell sang on it. But, man, I was like, I want to go out and work this record. I want to go do shows with Michael. We talked about this, and it's like, man, if there's ever, and I want to record another solo record. It's like I've got enough stuff without writing songs. I've got enough songs that I want to go record another record. And it's like, I want to be able to go out and do my own stuff, and that was the main thing. And it kind of, it hit me, I turned 50 a couple years ago, and when I hit 50, I thought, man, is it all downhill from here? And I didn't really know how to take that. It's like, I feel good, and I don't feel like I'm old, and then I got to thinking, and it hit me that when I got with Dell was my age. He was around 52, 53 years old, and he had a full career. He's still going. you
Yeah,
know, 33 years later. And I was like, man, I still have time to do, if I want to try to do a solo career, I can do this. And if I fall on my face, maybe I can get another job playing fiddle with somebody else, you know. Maybe somebody else would hire me if I fail at doing my own thing, you know. And with everything going on, I thought, well, I got my own management. I have my own. I'm being booked by William Morse Agency. It's a huge booking agency. You know, it's like everything's in play right now. I have all the pieces lined up for me. Everything's pointing for me to make this move. You know, and so it was. I think it was time. You know, if I didn't do it now, well, the hype of what little hype you receive in bluegrass music, you know, like, but the hype of like my last record it's kind of dying down now, and you got to work to keep your name out there. And then now we got the Michael Cleveland record, so I've got a little something to talk about, you know, with that. And then I want to do another record, so I it's like I have things I have this to go push. You know, so it's like all the pieces seem like they're fitting right now. And that's what whenever I left the band, I went and talked to Dell about it, you know, and I told him, it's like, I just feel like everything's pointing me to do this now. And he understands that, you know, I mean, he sees it, and he's, you know, and I think people were telling me that, like, whenever the first shows that I wasn't there, that he was talking to the crowd and, you know, and telling them, you know, it's like he's being played on the radio, and, you know, he hears that stuff too, you know, and you know, it's like maybe it was just time, you know, and we wish him well, and you know, he's given me, like, I feel that he's given me support, you know. So
well,
that's a good thing.
I think it's in bluegrass. It can be the way that it is in the jazz world, in that people start off in somebody else's band and then they move. Like the amount of people that came out of the Bluegrass Boys, and you look at the first Grisman Quintet and what they all went on to do, and it's sort of the natural order of things. And to have stayed for, you know, a third of a century is an astonishing thing in the first place.
Man, I tell you, I did not. I didn't want to leave. You know, I didn't. I wanted to hang in there with Dell until he decided to quit, you know, or, you know, but he's not, man, Dell's 86 years old, and he's unlike anybody I've ever seen, man. He's strong. He hasn't dropped a key. Like his voice, you know, a lot of people, they didn't sing like they did when they were younger. Dell sings as good and plays as good now as ever. At 86 years old, he's still going strong, man. And we played, some of my last shows was up in Washington, D.C., and we did like, each night was a different show. So we did like music from the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, 90s, 2000s. And man, a couple of those shows, I really thought they were, I mean, it was like career highlight for me. A couple of those nights were, I was just blown away by him. I heard him sing stuff that night, some of those nights that were different than any other night that I've ever, you know, he was just going for it. You know, it was really cool.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I interviewed Tony Trischka about the Earl Jam record, and he was saying that he got Del to sing Little Liza Jane on. Then they weren't planning on having a vocal on, but Del was there, and he went, "Would you want to sing it?" And like the top notes he hits on that are like, you know, there's people half his age who'd love to be able to sing like that.
Yeah, right.
and like you say, kind of waiting for the point that he retires, like. And then at the point that he wants to slow down a bit,
that could be 10 years from now. Who knows? Maybe not even then. You know, I don't know. He's not showing any signs of getting older. You know, not really, man. He's still killing it. So, and I thought, you know, I kind of thought, well, I can't wait 10 years. You know, it's like if I have this stuff, like I have this new record out with Michael, I have my old record, they're still playing on the radio, I've got more stuff. If I'm ever going to do this, it's now, I gotta jump, it wasn't an easy decision, man. And I mean, not only just leaving your what's like family to me, my best friends. Man, Dell's always been a generous boss, and it was, after being there 33 years, he paid me from day one. He paid me more than I was worth, So that was not easy to leave either, I get married and leave my job. I'm not the smartest cat.
But it's a funny thing, though, isn't it? I mean, I have a day job beyond this podcast, and I've been in that for nearly 20 years, and it becomes difficult to see yourself in a different context, doesn't it?
Right.
But you think, well, like, how will I know unless, and so for me doing this podcast has been that. This is sort of my solo record, if you know what I mean. But yeah, it is, when you've been somewhere that long, it's hard to know what exists outside of it, and you've got to go and find out. Right.
Man, since then, well, I've done this before too, but I've been going out and playing with this band Leftover Salmon, and I'm going out with those guys next week. I just come off a tour with those guys and going out with him again in a week or so. I just booked like 2 more weeks with a band called Yonder Mountain String Band, and I'm doing my own gigs. I'm doing gigs with Michael Cleveland, and man, I even took a couple gigs like at a club in Nashville with some other people, and it was just a club gig, and it was the best time. I had the greatest time, man. It was way cool. It's just different than what I was doing, and it's fun to do the other stuff, I'm really enjoying everything that I'm doing, and I hope that this is not the last time I get to play with the Del McCoury Band. I hope one of these days I'll be at the same festival or something and maybe get up and play some twin fiddles with Christian. Christian Ward is the new fiddle player in the Del McCoury Band. And if anybody that's listening to this doesn't know who Christian is, you should check him out, because he's a young guy, and he's the top of the game in the fiddle player world.
He's a great songwriter too.
Yeah, he sure is. Yeah. He's wrote songs for I think for Billy Strings and East Nash Grass. I don't know who else, but he's really good. Yeah.
Yeah, him and Jared
super
Walker
nice guy.
They've come out with some great stuff, haven't they?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're in a great place, and you sound energized and excited for what's next. And so have you got much coming up in terms of shows for your stuff or the stuff with Michael?
Yeah, I do. You can I think some of them are on my website. You can see there's not a whole lot on there right now, but there's different things coming in, and they just haven't been added to the site. But if you check back periodically, there'll be more dates come up. We have some festivals and just regular shows and whatnot with Michael, and just with my own band too. So yeah.
Well, I'll put a link up in the show notes to that, but I'll link to your social channels as well, because I know often that's the updates come a bit more frequently on the social channels.
Hey, you could check out. I'm trying to do like a residency, somewhat of a residency. I'm not doing anything in May, but in June, I'll be back at this club called Analog in Nashville. And I did a live stream from there, and I did it from my YouTube page. So there's 2 shows on there, 2 nights. I did the last 2 Mondays at Analog, and had different guests each night. But the last one, the first one, my buddy Pat McLaughlin, that I was writing some songs with, he came out, and Frank Evans and John Metter. I don't know if you know John Metter. He was with a band called Authentic Unlimited, but he also just took a job with Vince Gill. They were my guest, and Bronwyn, of course, was on there both nights. But this past Monday, Bryan Sutton came out and was a guest, Tim O'Brien and Daryl Scott. And those guys it was incredible, man. they were incredible. But that's all on my YouTube channel, and I'll be streaming my shows on there. It's the last 2 Wednesdays in June and the first Wednesday in July. And I don't know, I hope it can go longer than that. I don't know what my schedule will be like from then out, but at least we have those 3 shows booked for the future. So
yeah.
And you can go back and watch the other ones.
I'll put a link up to that as well then.
Yeah.
That's great. Well,
they're all on there, mistakes and all. They're all on there. My mistakes. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, I mean, it all sounds exciting, and it's been a real treat getting to chat to you. And like, on behalf of the entire bluegrass world, thank you for 33 years of wonderful music with Dale, because that band is loved by so many people, and you are a big part of that.
Man, thank you so much. I'm beyond proud of those days. So, but just honored to be a fly on the wall around those guys, you know. So, yeah. Well,
best of luck with what comes next, and it's been a real treat talking to you. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thank you for having me.
Bluegrass Jam Along is proud to be sponsored by Collins Guitars and Mandolins, each and every one built from the sound up in Austin, Texas.